We're back up on Capitol Hill. I've got John Fund joining me from the Wall Street Journal. I've got Al Franken joining me from everywhere. You know, the big question, gentlemen, is where we headed with this trajectory. We had a big election last week. Pelosi tried to bring her man in, Jack Murtha, very much the anti-war man of the House, into the leadership with her. That failed today. Tomorrow the Republicans fight over their leadership. Where's this all headed, John Fund?
Well, the Democrats won a big victory, but they didn't have to say a whole lot about what they would do once they got into power. I think the Pelosi-Murtha dust-up forces them to deliver now on ethics, forces them to put forward an agenda, and forces them to, I think, resolve some of the internal conflicts they have between the members elected from the red districts and the members who come from the deep blue districts. I think it's going to be very clarifying. It's going to force the Democrats to come right out of the bat in January with a full agenda.
Al Franken, where are we headed?
Well, I don't know how full the agenda is going to be. I know they're going to vote on to raise the minimum wage, and I think the first really fascinating one will be on Medicare Part D, where Democrats will push legislation and pass legislation to allow Medicare to bargain with the pharmaceutical companies on the price of drugs. And I think once that passes, it'll be interesting to see if the president vetoes it.
But they've already, what has to get through the Senate? You think it'll get through there? This is a big deal for people who are seniors who have medical problems.
I think it'd be a good deal for seniors because it would lower the price of prescription drugs. It would probably, they could use the money that was saved to close the donut hole. I think it's a win-win for seniors. I think it's a win-win for taxpayers. And it's just, you know, the Republicans sold out to the pharmaceutical companies and to the insurance companies, and I think that needs to be reversed.
Well, Al, I've heard a lot of good things there, but I haven't heard the word ethics. The Democrats campaigned against the culture of corruption, and the question is, Nancy Pelosi was supporting Jack Murtha, who, frankly, had real ethical problems. He said the ethics package they were promoting was crap, and now the question will be, will the Democrats move out as soon as they take control of Congress with a complete and full ethics package? Right now, I don't hear a lot of talk about that. I think the Pelosi-Murtha dust-up forces them to put that front and center before Medicare and before minimum wage.
I think it can all be done at the same time. I think they're going to do it in the first 100 hours, and I think that she talked about lobbying reform right away. And I think this is I'm glad that Steny Hoyer won. I really admire Jack Murtha for standing up on the Iraq War. I admire his service, but I think part of that vote was exactly what you're talking about, which is voting for ethics reform. I mean, let's face it. This was your guys, your pals are corrupt, and I mean your buddies, your chums. They're crooks.
Let me ask you about
I didn't know they were my chums.
Oh yeah. Oh come on, John. They're your
thanks for saying that I hang around with crooks. That's really nice, Al.
Oh, you're welcome.
Let me ask you both. You can start since he just offended you, and I think he did intentionally. Let me ask you, John Fund, and then Al Franken. There's a notion around this building. I mean, the great joke is from Mark Russell. I've repeated it before because it's hilarious. He says, what does a congressman say to another congressman on Wednesday? Have a nice weekend. I mean, the fact is, people say, we shouldn't do up here on the Hill. We shouldn't be doing indictments. They shouldn't be using the subpoena power. They shouldn't be trying to find out how the hell we get in this war, because that gets in the way of doing minimum wage and the Medicare stuff. And it gets in the way of ethics. You act like, John, that if you do minimum wage, you can't do ethics. No. They can work 5 days a week, can't they?
Well, they haven't brought a calendar that will say you do that. Look, the Republicans, they had a legitimate problem.
It's their only job.
They did not do oversight that Congress is supposed to do, because you can't do it 3 days a week.
Right.
But they also
Who
have this
decided
problem
that the Hill should only work 3 days a week? The
because
Republican
remember family-friendly. The whole thing was going to be a family-friendly Congress.
So you only work 3 days a week?
Well, the question
is, track for Capitol
remember,
Hill?
a lot of members decided not to move their families to Washington.
Oh, that was a great decision.
Back in the district. Yeah. Well, the Democrats are going to have to decide. Do you want a 5-day work week, or do you want to go back to the Republican calendar? Well, it was the Republicans
who created the 3-day work week for only themselves.
I've heard nothing said about the calendar yet, Chris. It's the great
John, I get in here, Al. I'm not going to argue this.
Well, I just want to, you know, John's pals, his buddies, his friends decided, oh, we'll only have 69 full work days in the whole year. I mean, your buddies did that.
Wait a second. A lot of work goes back in the district. It's called consulting with the constituents.
You can do that actually on the actual weekend, but these guys only met 69 full days, and there's lots of work to do. And part of what you were at the dinner last night, John, and
Bill Clinton, that's right.
Right, and the president talked about not only corruption and not only Iraq, but the fact that American people want Congress to address the real problems that Americans face every day. And that's health care, and that's why the Medicare Part D thing is so important. And it's jobs, and it's energy independence, which are go hand in hand. We can create so many new jobs with energy, new energy, and
just remember, Al, California voters voted on a big oil tax, and they decided that yes, I think we do need alternative energy. But remember, alternative energy can also mean an awful lot of subsidies and an awful lot of waste. We saw that with the ethanol project, which I think a lot of liberal Democrats.
I'm surprised you're against ethanol.
No, a lot of liberal Democrats were against ethanol. A lot of liberal Democrats were against the shale oil and the other kind of subsidies that we saw in the 1980s. You can have alternative energy, but you can also have it according to market principles, Al. And you don't want to subsidize energy companies, which are already trying to horn in on this.
How's Nancy Pelosi?
You mean
One question.
by giving tax breaks to oil companies like your buddies did in the last Congress, in the last energy bill, your pals? You mean billions of dollars in tax breaks, John?
Al, for somebody who wants to talk about policy, you just want to make it all personal. I'm sorry.
Okay,
maybe you're not in on the joke, John.
I got to take John's side of this. Let's talk about the objective. Let's talk the real personality here, not John Fund. What kind of a speaker is Nancy Pelosi going to be?
That was asked of me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I hope she's a great speaker. Again, what President Clinton said last night, and John, this was all a joke, your pal thing. You just didn't get it. Okay.
Sometimes you're on and sometimes you're off, Al. You know that
No,
too.
I'm always on. You barely ever off. But anyway, here's the point. What Clinton said yesterday is that Democrats were not given a mandate. We were given a chance. And I think that Nancy Pelosi knows that. And I think that we're going to try to get things done. Now, he was talking about, and John will attest to this, he was talking about the difference between ideology and philosophy. John and I have different philosophies, and his pals, his buddies in the administration have an ideology. And that's what got us into Iraq.
What is Bill Clinton's ideology, Al? I was very impressed with the president's speech last night, but he says he was against ideology, so he doesn't have one?
I think it's Friday night.
He has a philosophy.
I think that's his philosophy, Friday night.
Now, philosophy is different from an ideology. With an ideology, you know all the answers. With a philosophy, you have convictions and beliefs, but you go based on evidence. And that was the problem with this administration and Iraq. They have been lying to us from the beginning. They have been telling, it was only yesterday, finally, that General Abizaid said we didn't send in enough troops. General Shinseki was right.
And he also said we shouldn't pull out.
3.5 years.
Okay. Look, please come back. Please come back out.
Sure, thanks.
You've been doing a lot of homework here, and I think you got ahead of the class. But very well done. I mean it. I'm not sarcastic. It's great. Thank you, Al, for coming on, and thank you, John.
Okay, John, say hi to your buddies.
Say hi to Bill. I enjoyed him last night. He was great.
He's a great buddy. You got your corrupt buddy.
Well, thanks, Al Franken. Thank you for joining us. And I think John Fund's a good sport to hang out with those buddies of his.